Some of the best gifts I've ever received were not paints or brushes. They were books. Books you can flip through again and again for new techniques, fresh inspiration, or just calm place to land when you're stuck. In this video, I'm sharing the art books I swear by, from drawing and watercolor to color theory and artist monographs. And at the end, I'll show you two quirky ones that you won't probably find outside Japan, but it's really interesting and I like it. Oh my god, spider. Nah! Okay, I need to catch it before it goes away. Right there, baby. Do you see it? Okay. Gotta get you out. The first book that I'll be sharing with you is Draw Your World by Samantha Dion Baker. All the lists of the books will be down below, and if you click to it, there's no additional cost to you, but it'll support this channel, so thank you very much. Okay, so Samantha Dion Baker, Draw Your World. This was a book that I got when I just started watercolor. Really, I used to do journaling, and I love looking at her work, and she gives off different kind of like warm-up to do. And then yeah, this was pretty much my start in watercolor. I just love reading her. There's bits of stories, and it feels very personal, and I love it. So this is one of the books I started with. Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain by Betty Edwards. This one I have the workbook, and the main book I didn't get because I used to borrow it from the library, and then I'll read at the library, and then I'll take this home and do the workbook at home. So that's why I only have the workbook, but it's been really nice to just do the exercises, and it built me up for the workshop that I attended with Agnes Cecil, who I just love. She's a great watercolor artist, and yeah, before her workshop I kind of like did tons of drills of drawing. And this one, Lessons in Masterful Portrait Drawing by Malcolm Yim and Iris Yim. This is a great book. They're basically teachers who's taught for decades and using pencil and charcoal and whatnot, and what to like focus on. They explain it. So I've done these drawings every day and went on to carrying how to become better at drawing, and I really love this book, and it's a great one to look back at and flip over. So drawings are very basic, right? We need to know how to draw to then be able to be a better painter and so forth. They are two, I believe they are two different things, but it's good to have to be able to have the skill of drawing. Okay, so next I want to get into color, because who doesn't love color? So I have 3 books on color that I want to share with you. The Artist's Palette. This is a beautiful book of like different artists and their palette side by side, and then it kind of takes you to a snippet of their life story and whatnot. And I just love look at that J.M.W. Turner's like palette. It's just like, what? And it's sometimes fun to like, you know, cover the artist name and then kind of figure out who it is, but it's just amazing. And I love these snippets because it's like 2 pages worth of like the artist story and the color and what that time in life was like and so forth. So I just love reading this book. It's a great book to kind of read when you're kind of dozing off. Okay, and then the next one, The Oil Painter's Color Handbook by Todd M. Casey. This one, I'm not an oil painter. Well, that's where I started. I started off with oil painting before I reached out to watercolor. But I did reach out to Todd M. Casey and say, hey, like, do you think this book I would find useful for even watercolor artists? He gave me a very great answer. He said, well, there's a difference between like an opaque medium, relatively speaking, and watercolor, where it's more about the translucency. So he kind of said, I think there's still value in the book, and I got it, and I'm glad I got it because it's just packed with like information about the color wheel and why like color theory is such a tricky thing, that it's still not perfect basically, and he gets to, I think this is the close enough perfection, a perfected color theory that he can come close to, and he explains about that, and he goes through different colors, different color palette schemes that artists use, and what kind of feelings those like create and so forth. So I just love this book. It's so beautiful to just walk through at times when you need that color buzz. So that's one book. And then the next one is The Secret Lives of Color by Cassia St. Clair. This is a great one to kind of like just say pick one color, and then it says the Baker Miller pink, fuchsia, shocking pink, fluorescent pink. There's different pinks, and then you can go into history of each one. It's about like 2 or 3 pages of that specific color, and then it'll walk you through some interesting stories on it. And this is one of the other books that I love looking at when I'm dozing off. Oh, sorry, I forgot, in the drawing section, the Book of Drawing Flowers by Bianca. This is a great one if you want to learn how to draw flowers, and it basically gets down to the anatomy of flowers and say, hey, this is, you know, the basic way these flowers are drawn, and it's a great book if you just want to learn how to draw flowers. It's helped me a ton. So that's in the drawing section, sorry. Wow, there's tons. I don't know how to kind of move this around so it's easy for me to explain. Oh my god. I just love art books, as you can see. Watercolor Techniques for Artists and Illustrators by DK. I love DK books. It's just like the basic place to go. It's full of images and explanations, and it's lovely. This one is specifically about different watercolor techniques and the basics that you need to know when you're painting. And sometimes I like to relearn some things and be like, oh yeah, like that's something I should keep in mind. And then relearning is such a huge part of, you know, being an artist. I think like we assume we know, and then sometimes we learn new things from just reading. So this is a great book to have around to go back to the basics. So if you're kind of starting out, I would say this book would be a great one to like give somebody who's like, I want to start watercolor. It's great. It's a great one. Okay, Artist Manual. Now I flip into this book because I often do like testing surfaces and stuff like that. And this, when I'm like, oh, I wonder how I use that medium because I've never used it, I can go back to this book, check in the index section to see if it actually talks about that, and then go into that section to deep dive. So this is like a nice reference to look back at here and there, especially when you're working with different mediums. So as a mixed media artist, sometimes I like to have this in hand. Okay, the next one is The Artist's Guide to Composition. Now I have struggled with composition for quite some time and still, and my son does a better job at it. But The Artist's Guide to Composition by Frank Webb, this is a great book. I looked around for tons of books that was like a great explanation for composition, and this one pretty much nailed it. And I thought, and I would say the most eye-opening moment when it comes to composition was at Kelogsloops workshop that I went back in Munich, Germany, when I was living there. And he was the one who opened my eyes into composition. I didn't tell him in the interview that I did of him, but yeah, he's the one who said something that made so much sense. So if you're interested, I have a blog about it, or even like a podcast where I talk about it, and his interview. So I'll leave it in the description below. But this is a great book to like walk you through what makes a good composition. So if you're an artist, or if you're an artist's friend and see like they need some compositional work, don't get this for them, because they'll be like, are you saying my composition is not right? So you don't want that. Okay, so Painting Portraits in Watercolor by Liz Chatterton. This one was gifted by my mother-in-law. She's such a lovely person, so sweet. I didn't think I would enjoy it as much as I did, especially like, you know, there were a lot of things that I relearned or even learned for the first time, but also there was a section where it talked about watercolor plus mixed media. So she goes over different kind of ways to play around with watercolor. And this is the specific place where she put newspaper onto watercolor as a collage. And I thought, oh my God, that's such a great idea. So I did that with one of my pieces, which I love. It was kind of inspired by a collector way back when I just started. And she was like, do you have your work signed? And I was just like, you want my signature? Wow, that's so cool. And then I started practicing my signature because you can't use, I don't want to use the same signature that I use for my administrative documents, like in my personal life. So it's separate. But yeah, I kind of like went over my signature. Well, it's a whole new story. So anyways, yeah, so I used that piece of newspaper for that work, and it kind of went well. So if you have a watercolor artist as a friend who you want to give a gift, and even if they're 3 years in, 4 years in, they would really enjoy this book because it has like different techniques that they might have not come up with before. And the next one is Botanical Watercolors Through the Seasons by Sandrine Moggy. I think that's how you pronounce her name. This is just a beautiful book to go through. I haven't quite like read all of it, but just flipping through it's such a beautiful book. And it, you know, there's something about botanical artists. As a watercolor portrait artist who uses primarily hot press paper for my work, and botanical artists do as well, I just enjoy the delicateness of their artwork, and it just goes through into tone studies, which is great. A lot of glazing, layering, and I don't know, I just love how delicate and beautiful the artworks are really, and I just like to keep it. I mean, look at that. That's so pretty. So I just love to keep this, but I do want to go into this and actually paint a lot of flowers in my portraits in the future. So that's why I get all these flower studies and all that, because I'm terrible at them and I want to get better. It's a bit away from like a usual watercolor artist like thing, but if your friend or you are thinking about making G-clay prints, like a very archival, long-lasting prints, that's a reproduction of your paintings, then I really highly recommend this, a G-clay handbook for artists. I bought this in the UK when I went to London because my husband is from there, and at Cas Art they had this and it was 25% off, and I was very interested in G-clay printing, although I haven't done it yet, but it taught me so much in a very simplified way, not too overwhelming, and I got a lot of valuable information about it. So yeah, I'm definitely thinking about doing prints in the future, so that was great to know. This one is probably my #1 favorite of all the watercolor related books when it comes to technique. It's by Anna Bucciarelli. I think that's how you're saying her name. She's beautiful. I've seen her videos on YouTube and I really enjoy her. Her voice is so beautiful and her artworks are so pretty. So I really enjoy her book. I got it relatively recently and it's like a huge encyclopedia. It's only about like what, $24, and it's massively tons of information, probably that I can get with all these books that I have. If it was one, I probably just need this one because man, the amount of information and the work that she put into this is just like crazy in a very good way. So if you just need one book that you want to gift an artist or you want to get, then I would say go for this. It's packed with information, very worth the value. Okay, and then this is not watercolor per se, but I was amazed by this book. I primarily work with watercolor, but I do love to use gouache at times, and when I do, I went through the libraries nearby and I borrowed all the gouache books and went through them, but this one needed to be bought. Like, I need a copy of this. It's called Rediscovering Gouache by Alyosha Blau. I think that's how you say his name. He's an amazing artist, definitely different from the kind of works that I like to create, but still yet I really enjoyed, like there were a lot of questions that I had around gouache, but he basically nailed it down for me and he explains it in a very storytelling, lovely way with his own art, which I really enjoy reading. I never got bored of reading this book. I read all the way until the end. It was just so fun, like reading this. I went on consecutively just reading this book. It talks about how, when gouache was born, what it is like, what is it close to, it's the sister of watercolor and why, and how to layer them, how to create some different kind of works, and also gives a few like warm-ups, you know, like a few exercises to work out with. Amazing, amazing artist and amazing book. So I really appreciate that book. That's basically from the techniques and instruction side. And now I want to get to reflective relaxation reads. So this is one of my son's favorite, although he's 4. He always keeps on getting this book out from my bookshelf and I have to go look for it. It's called 200 Words to Help You Talk About Art. Now it goes through the media of art. Sometimes there's just sometimes there's just words that I never really understood it. It goes over techniques of art, and then it goes into art movements, and then it goes into art styles and art concepts. I mean, this is so interesting to have a read over and understand, you know, different words. Like in art styles, there was one word that I was like, I didn't even know such word existed. Japonism. Japonism can be considered a subset of Orientalism. As its name implies, it refers to a craze for Japanese art and culture among Western artists, which emerged in 19th century Western Europe, thanks in part to the resumption of Western trade with Japan after 1850. And that's around the time, I believe, that Vincent van Gogh got into it. And also Klimt has a bit of influence from Japanese art. So quite interesting. And I go into whole Japanism. If you're into Japanism, I do have a Skillshare class around that if you're interested. Okay, so that's one great book to have a read. Just flip through. It's quite fun. Painting Calm. Now, the reason why I didn't put this into the technique, although it could be technique instruction related book, I just love flipping through this book. It's just beautiful just to watch. Something about her work is so calming, and that's why I kind of flip through it when I have some coffee. I don't drink coffee. What am I talking about? Tea. It's just a beautiful book to walk through. It does have a lot of instructions, so it can go to the instructions bit. So if you're looking for something calming, as the name implies, calming and instructive, go for this book. It's a great book. This one I only have in Japanese. It's called The Artist's Way by Cameron Diaz. That's right. I got it in Japanese because I can read Japanese. I grew up there. But this book I've had for so many years, and it's unbelievable how just time flies and things, you know, and then you just like put a lid to your artistic process, like journey and everything, because basically I picked up this book when I was about, I think 21 or 23, and it laid on my shelf for such a long time until I was like 32, and I was just like, wait a minute, like I want to read this and start it over again. So I read it, and then basically, you know, a few years later, or maybe 1 year later, I really started painting every single day. So this, I would say, was definitely the way for me to get through that huge wall and just create. So if you have a friend who's put a lid on her, you know, on her creative journey or whatever, this would be a lovely gift to give to that person. Or if you're an artist who like always wanted to create but you haven't because there's all that critic going in your head, this is a book for you to go for. Okay, Creative Block. How to Get Unstuck and Discover New Ideas by Danielle Chris. She's also called the Jealous Curator. Now, her whole idea of this name, Jealous Curator, is because when you get jealous from looking at artwork, it means it's that good, right? And so that's where she gets the idea of the Jealous Curator, and that's her blog name. And she goes by that name, writing about tons of different art. If you're feeling stuck or you're feeling that creative block or sometimes resistance in creating, then this gives you 50 advice and projects from 50 successful artists, and it's great to just go through which one you might want to try out. It's like nice if you just flip it and then like open up a page and start doing that if you're feeling unstuck. I go back to this time and time again. I've also created a podcast episode. My first episode was about this and it did really well. you might want to have a listen, or I also will have a video around it, or it should be already published, so I'll link it to the end for you to check out. They're artists, their lives and work by DK. Again, this is a great one. It goes from chronological order of all the famous masters and gives a bit of context, like a snippet of what were the major things that happened during that time and what kind of work did well and so forth. It's a great way, because I did the Masters Reimagined series. It's lovely to kind of go back to this and flip through, okay, who am I doing this month? And if it's Pablo Picasso, okay, let's look at Pablo Picasso. And then, you know, it gives me a short snippet of the artist and some information I never knew, and it's a great read to have around for inspirations as well. It's just not one artist, which is the good part, I suppose. So next one is the category of artist journeys and monographs. Man, this is so good. Creative Portraits in Watercolor by Ana Santos. Now, I've taken her class on Domestika and it was so fun. Although it was like translated to English, it was still okay. Yeah, I just love her work, and she explains like a whole process. So this could go definitely into the technique side of things, but it's also like looking through all her like different styles of artworks, and some of these, you know, technique or process is something I've never really thought of. So it's very fun to see the difference in how one artist's work can look so different, but it's really detailed explanation of the works that you can create. I mean, look at this. One of the things that I really enjoyed from her Domestika course was like the thought of painting, but also using snippets of that watercolor paintings, like digitalizing it and using it for your artwork. And I'm thinking about doing a whole big painting with digitalizing some areas of my artwork and then combining them all together. I can't finish this video off without this one, the art of Kelogsloops from sketch to finish. Now, I think a lot of you would know him. He was basically the start of me like on YouTube, like, you know, learning how to do watercolor back in 2019, I believe it was, the end of 2019. And he's the one who got me into Agnes Cecile, who's an amazing artist. And I took both of their workshops. So, and I also interviewed him before, so if you're interested, I'll have that in the link below. But he's an amazing artist. When he said he was going to publish this book, I had to get it. Now, what's good about it is it's packed with tons of information. It goes from, you know, his start with his watercolor journey, and what I love about so much as a fan of Agnes Cecile as well is that he got her to write her, you know, like connection with Hugh Kelogsloops, and how she's very happy and proud that he's, you know, took that inspiration from her and then got deeper into watercolor and now is like, you know, like a well-known artist. So he goes, this is showing all his work from where he started, how he evolved into the artist that he is today. It's just such a beautiful book because it's like big, so it shows all his work in really huge sizes. But it's not just that, it's like you can really connect with how an artist is evolving and how the process looks like when he's creating his artwork. And he goes into deep dive into like how to find your style, and basically I wouldn't say, you know, what he thinks of it, because I want you to read this book, but basically I've also created what I feel about it as well on my blog, and I have a whole like a way that you can dig into that a bit, you know, your style, if you're kind of like, I want to know my style. But anyways, beautiful book. There's a few tutorials that he explains how to do some creating the sea, and advices, just raw artist journey right there in a huge book. Portrait Companion. Now this one gets a lot of mixed feelings from people. I just love Chris Hong's artwork. She very different style, but every portrait that she creates is like very anime-istic. It becomes like more caricature kind of feeling, but I love her use of like colors and the structure, the angularity, yet the roundiness of these cute portraits. I just love them. So I like looking at work, but Some people do mention that they weren't happy with the fact that there are only few pages at the end which explains the process. So I would take it as a book that shows her work more so. It's like a portfolio. And she gives 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 pages of instructions. So if you're happy with it, I would say go for it. I am happy with it. I love looking at work, and I can imagine what the process might look like just by looking at these full images of her portraits. So I'm happy with that one. Now these two are the artists that I absolutely love, although I don't have two more of my favorite masters books. One is Klimt, Gustav Klimt. He's one of my favorites, so I'm planning to get it, but I haven't found any books that really make me want to buy one, so not yet. But I got Egon Schiella's Drawing in Watercolors. Now I'm a huge fan of Egon Schiella too. I've created like Masters Reimagined series of him, but this book I would say is the #1 book of Egon Schiella because it walks you through the whole, like where he started as an art, really young age, into being an art student, and then you gradually build up into what Egon Schiella is remembered as now. But it takes you through the context of what his life was gradually, like before showing the works. So it's like this time around at his age that he was going through training at the school, at the academy, and eventually and then it'll show you all the artworks related during those times, and you do see that whole artistic journey that he walks through. And some are quite disturbing, and some artworks I've never seen before. Yeah, and I absolutely love seeing that whole journey, how he evolves into what we remember his works basically. But I love his uses of oranges. Like when I think about Egon Schiella, it's like orange and pencil, like graphite pencil work. Really great. A lot of nudes obviously, but still excellent work. Okay, I'm gonna be thrown out of YouTube. Okay, so if you know any artists that love Egon Schiella, definitely get this one. And then the next one of my favorite artists, Van Gogh, Vincent. Yep, the complete painting. So I don't know how I cannot have this because he's probably my top 3 favorite artists of all times. And although, you know, I don't necessarily like to paint like he does or like to draw as he does, regardless, I had to own his complete paintings so I can go back and forth. I have done a Masters Reimagined series of him creating his work, and I realized, nope, I don't like the way he paints. It's not for me, but I like looking at them, and that's totally fine. Okay, so lovely book. If you need one from Vincent van Gogh and you're a huge lover of Vincent's, definitely get this one. It's packed. It's like a huge encyclopedia of his work. Okay, now to the quirky fun stuff. We can't finish the video without a fun quirky thing, right? So if you're planning to go to Japan, or maybe they might even sell it on some other website. So this one is called the But Art and Design. And why I like this book is it gives me inspirations inside this book, some explanations in English, but it talks about the tradition of chiyogami and colored pattern woodcut printed papers. And it's so inspirational just walking through them, looking at different patterns like Japanese patterns, like prints. Because I do so much portraits outside of, you know, my content creation world, sometimes I'm like, well, I was raised in Japan. I quite like to go back to my roots sometimes, and I would then want to create classes with Skillshare around, like, you know, Japanese art. So this is where I got some of my inspirations, and yeah, a great book to look through. And then this one is very fun. I did get it at the bookstore, but maybe it's not considered really a book. But it says 100 writing and crafting papers from Nakagawa Masashichi Shoten. So these are all papers, basically. Look at that selection of different papers. Lovely, right? I sometimes write my letters. I sometimes wrap this for small presents that I'm giving away. It could be a chopstick holder and so forth, or a calendar. You can create your own calendar with it. But it's really nice to have these because these are basically a source of inspiration sometimes, where I think like, oh, that pattern, I want it behind my portrait paintings and so forth. So it's kind of like a fun thing to have around, I would say. Okay, and that's pretty much it. If you're interested in my Kelogsloops interview, check them out. Or if you're also interested in the Vincent van Gogh Portrait Masters Reimagined series or the Egon Schiele, then check them out here. I'll see you in the next one.